click on this arrow, you will see that there's this light that's blinking. That means it's recording. If you want to stop, you right click on that blinking dot. So yeah, and this is very useful. When I would say, you know, first couple of missions, run the recording software. After that, it's up to you. But it's great for training purposes and troubleshooting. If some weird things
is there a time marker on that? So like something weird happens, I can just hit a button and it's a time stamp in it. So I can...
No, but in the video, you can land and then tell me.
Right.
Go to minute number 25, I had some weird things.
Right, so I just have to actually write down a note what time these things happen then? Yeah. Okay.
You could, yeah.
Okay.
But you don't have to. Alright, so we're recording. So what you want to do is you want to first go ahead and start riot wire. Are we sitting over black tarmac? There's nothing underneath?
Right.
Okay. That's something, if you go into the
black to gray.
Yeah, that's okay. As long as it's not on the paint stripes, you're good.
Paint stripe under the center, right?
We're good.
What is the thing if there is paint stripes underneath it? What's that going to do to the... Is this just for reflecting laser energy? Is it
you could damage receiver if it's something very reflective underneath. Okay. So you don't want to fire it over painted stripes or those cat eye reflectors.
Solar farms.
Yeah. Okay, so what we're going to do first, we're going to create a ground test project. So click on this new ground project. Yeah, or either file or you can just click this new page and it will bring this up. So put the name, so it's going to be stored under C Reigl project, so put a name in there. You can call it ground test. Alright, next. This window will come up and it will basically tell you where it's logging the data. It's going to go to the data recorder. You don't have to change anything on this screen. You just hit finish. And you will have this video for references. I don't know if it's easier for you to write everything down or go through this process and then review the video.
Yeah, I'll probably just take my notes, go down,
okay.
And I'll have the thing. Okay. I'm going to make something.
No problem. Alright, so this is typical RiotWire screen. This is your camera preview, this is the top view. There's a couple of windows underneath that, but generally this is how I like it set up. You can reconfigure it later if you like.
Cool.
First thing you want to do, you want to initialize. Hit that button. And initialize means connect the laptop computer to the sensor, to the data recorder, to the camera. So all it means is start connecting. Alright, so you have your first error. So error at network operation timeout, and it tells you Reigl CS6, so basically it's Reigl camera is not communicating with the black box, or the laptop is not communicating with the black box. So since it's the first time we're firing this up, chances are I used the wrong, there's two jacks on the Ethernet, and I probably used the wrong one. So you can configure each one for a certain IP address. So it was pre-configured, but I wasn't sure which plug I needed to use, so I just guessed. So it's good to label these things so you don't have this. But anyways, it's good to go through these errors so you understand what could happen. So what I will do is I'll try the different port, or another thing we could try to ping the camera with an IP that it's looking for and see if we can make a ping. But for the moment, it's not connecting. So I'm going to switch it. Alright, so notice that INS GPS is already connected and you're getting readings, so we're good. That means we're seeing satellites and we're communicating with a PAWS, a Planix PAWS, which is IMU and the GPS. The scanners are also initialized. You have channel 1 and channel 2. They're also connecting and looking good. Green means good, Yellow means warning, red means something is going on, and grayed out means there's no connection that could be established. So this is orange because the yaw accuracy is way beyond the limit. So once you start moving, it will turn green. This is grayed out because we don't have a connection. So at this time, what you should see is this window pop up, and then once the camera is connected, there's a camera window that will pop up. You could leave this alone, and you can go back to initialize and see where it says an arrow right next to it. Yep. And then you can just say initialize the camera, because all the other ones are already grayed out, meaning that they have been initialized. And now we are connecting, so if it successfully connects, it will stay green. Alright, and the camera initialization connection usually takes about 45 seconds or so.
So all the Planix stuff is on auto boot, so it's all turned on. We don't have to go into pause AV or anything like that.
We will do it just so we can pre-configure the lever arms this time. So that's the only time you would need to do it. Of course, you have it available to you, so if you need to get in there to do whatever, you could. It logs the data internally.
Yeah, no, I saw that it's on here, so we don't have to like go and start it logging or anything like that.
It will always log the data internally, and you can always download via FTP internal, but Reigl also will log it. So generally, you don't need to FTP in unless you lost connection in flight and your trajectory is collected halfway or something. So you generally have a trajectory here, but if there's a problem, you have a backup on that.
So the Reigl
and does that require any that buffer on? So I'm thinking of like UltraNav, the same general. It's a UNAV, but it's an AP stack, right?
Yep.
So do we have to do any maintenance or management on that as far as the buffer filling up?
I see. Good question. So it has, I think, like 16 gigs of memory, or maybe even more.
Is that our system making that noise?
You have 16 to like 32 gigs of memory. So as soon as that's filled up, you will see a warning in Reigl telling its memory is full. You have two options. You can go in there and delete it, or you can leave it and it will overwrite the older files. But it will give you a warning also. So I would say just leave it on and it will overwrite it. And you always have like 2 weeks of backup or something like that in case you ever need it.
Okay. The actual pause data is written to the Reigl project. It gets handed to me. There's a folder on there.
Yeah, the question I'd ask is because on the UltraCam it uses a similar thing. It'll store X number of files, and you don't clean them off.
Yeah. That's the older. That was the older pause. With the newer one, they overwrite. That's the All right. So you got two windows now. One for camera, one for the scanner. It doesn't matter which order you go here, but first thing that you want to do is start logging trajectory right away. While this is initializing, hit this globe. And you can do your, just hit that, and it will bring up this window, and it will show you all the maps. And today is a very good day because you have 10 satellites GPS, you have 9 GLONASS, and then these ones are not quite ready for that receiver, but anyways, we're good. It says 25 satellites, but 10 plus 9 is 19, so I don't know where how the math worked out here, but anyways, this is...
They may be tracking, but under the horizon.
Yeah. Maybe
25 or 30 degree horizon.
4 Galileos.
Okay.
0, 0, 0.
Oh yeah, but Galileo says 0, so I guess it's tracking more, but it's not logging in.
It's just got the turn signal, but not more.
So what you're gonna do here is hit next, and then it will give you an option for the timer, and you can just say start countdown. And in general, you want to have 5 minutes static. You could cut it a little bit shorter, but you have to make sure, if you go full 5 minutes, you're more or less guaranteed you'll have good static session.
And if we ask you to operate the base station at the airport, you got to have that base station running before you start the static here.
Yeah, preferably 15 minutes. Yeah. And there is a little bit of, safety margin in that. You can cut it a little bit shorter, but
It's pretty rare that would ever be less than 15 minutes by the time you set it up and get it logging and get back to the airplane and get the engine started and get to this point. You're looking at least 30 minutes probably.
All right, and
Don't forget to set it up though.
Right.
Since we are training here, you could expedite this by saying skip the wizard, but in general, you'll wait for that, and you can tell the pilot, okay, 4 minutes, and when you're at 30 seconds, you can tell him, all right, we're ready to go. He'll call the tower, and so if you start moving right before it finishes, it's okay. It's basically a timer for you.
Yeah.
But try to have around 5 minutes static session. And you can give the pilot, okay, usually at 30 seconds on the helicopter, I give them a minute and tell them, look, I'm ready. They'll call the tower, they'll do this, and then by the time they get their stuff done, it's at 0. All right, so skip the wizard, and it will tell you, are you really sure? Yeah. And basically, if we're not moving, we're continuing the static session right now. And you need the static session for post-processing. That's all you're doing. When you post-process trajectory, you need several minutes of non-moving so you can align the system well. All right, so now you have these two windows, and all you have to do is just click on this arrow, and you generally will have a couple of flight plans underneath there, or just one. We're gonna fire it on the ground, so we don't want to use 25% power because you start melting asphalt and stuff. So we're gonna create a new one. Again, this is generally what you don't need to do because Matt will give you a project.
Yeah.
But I'll go through the process. So you could put pretty much anything you want in there. 100 feet, 100 knots, whatever.
So you're going to say this project is your ground test. You can use this as a ground test config, and we can put that ground test config if you want in every file.
Or you could put it in the default.
Okay.
So when you create a new project, that will be there.
Yeah, so we'll do.
And don't worry about naming it just yet. You could do it that way, but I'll show you another way. So put ground speed, 100 knots, whatever. This is what's important. So instead of 100% power, go with the lowest power setting. You may have a 1%, half a percent. Okay, cool. So very low power setting, and everything else is fine. What you could do is hit uniform point spacing, and it will adjust your mirror speed. And on the ground power, 300 lines per second, that's pretty fast. You may not want to do that on the ground because it's going to sound like a lawnmower at that mirror speed. So you could drop it down to like 100 lines a second or something like that. Okay, 66 is the minimum, so it will spin a little bit slower, so that's fine. But in general, when you're creating this, you always want to hit uniform point distribution, so it picks the proper mirror speed for that setting.
Is there a shutter you can close on this for when you fire it on the ground? Or no?
There's this laser safety button. That's about all.
There's no shutter. There's no shutter to keep it from actually firing out of the plane.
That cap, that's your shutter right there.
Remove it for flight.
Okay, so
You said don't park over straight.
proposed name. If you hit that, it will basically take all of these parameters. And I think actually you could set it here where once you're below, remember we're playing in environment settings?
Right.
Actually there's a setting, if you're below a certain altitude it won't fire. So I think, Chris, it does have this feature.
That's the ice safety more like, we're talking like with the Leica and the Optec.
Yeah.
The shutter, you can let you fire the laser on the ground, but it's actually not emitting it. It's not hitting the ground and returning. It's being absorbed by it. It gets absorbed by the
ground to get really high returns.
Yeah, if you hit that button, that's what it will do.
Well, that'll just stop it firing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like with the Leica, you can ground fire the laser. But there's shutters that don't open if you're not at altitude, and it just absorbs the energy rather than reflecting it back into the
I think
receiver.
it's done at 0.5% power. It's less than 1% power, so I think the return.
Anyway, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and now if you want, you can keep this or you can modify this, whatever, but it tells you that test only, so you could leave it as that and hit OK. And see, now you have your thing selected. And if you go under there, now you have 2 options there. And you can have a lot more.
Yeah.
But that's what we want. And you're gonna hit apply all. In here, we discussed this. You can plug in all of the atmospherics, but you guys are doing it in the office, so you don't have to worry about that. All right, notice something here. See, laser configuration is being applied, so now you can read it in there. So you just applied it, and you can close this. If you go to housekeeping, this is information about your sensor. You don't need to do this ever, but for you guys as a background, it will tell you a lot of stuff. You know, when you're recording, you can actually see the buffer readouts and all of that.
Does this housekeeping come through in the project anyplace?
I don't think so.
Okay. We may ask you to screen cap that on once a week or on every.
Yeah, and it gives you hours and all of that stuff. If you're tracking hours on the sensor.
Yeah, because we're going to want to track hours pretty detailed on the sensor.
Perfect. But it tells you here, okay, the date, laser on time, 8 hours, motor on time. So this is basically for the bore sighting and stuff like that. When it comes, there's a couple hours on there.
Once a week we'll send that.
What's that?
Once a week we'll send that.
Yeah, we'll start once a week sending that to us. That'd be good.
If you drop it down, let's just test and just.
All right, but you in general don't need to mess too much with it. It's just there's very useful information.
Well, we may have you include some of that in like a log sheet, manually write it down, and then once a week send the screen cap type thing. We'll see.
This one is yours, right?
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
All right, so we applied here. You can close that window.
Right there.
And next thing we're gonna do for the camera. And for the camera, usually what I do when I go up in the air, I test fire it at the interval, and then I switch it over to the FMS, and FMS will do all of the triggering automatically. So to manually trigger it, I put it on interval, so every 3 seconds it will take a picture, and I can adjust the camera settings. And then under interval, you should have external high. External high, when you switch to that, that means FMS will take over. So it will be basically triggered by the tracker trigger.
When you get online, straight and level flight, on that flight line, it'll start triggering the camera for you.
Yeah, so now on the ground we'll do interval, but then we'll also test the other as well.
So back on that housekeeping page there, the data field that tells us basically the OBS counter for the sensor, what's that labeled as?
Hours for the sensor.
Yeah.
You have laser on time, you have motor on time, and then there may be a system on time as well. So if you want to get back to that window or change the settings, for example, you just hit this scanner gear with the gear, and you'll get back to that, and then you can go to housekeeping. And then you have serial number, firmware number, scanner on time, laser on time, motor on time.
So you want scanner on time?
Yeah, we'll keep track.
So what I'm going to do is
now.
on the flight log I draft up, I'll put a data field for scanner on time, and you'll just go at the end of the flight, go and write down the log, and then we'll have an update in the office every day.
And then you have 2 channels, but I would say they should be more or less the same. And then you have the same thing for pause. So good info there.
Well, weekly we'll have them send the report, and then we'll record something in the flight log. We got to figure out how we're going to charge it.
All right, so close that window, or you can leave it open. You know, just move it aside. Okay, here. This is where you see right now. It says laser configuration NA. That means you did not apply it. So go ahead and apply it.
Well.
Yep. And you will see that now you're set at the 3 interval. And just pay attention to these fields, which parameters you're using. Obviously, you don't want to use 0.5% power when you're flying.
Yeah.
So, and then this one too, you probably not going to use that. Go to settings. And the settings is where you pick the camera exposure settings. By default, it comes on auto. So this will auto do everything for you. And you can start there, but generally I have a pretty good idea. On a bright day like this, you're looking at least 1/1600 ISO the lowest, and then aperture around 6 or so, and then you can go from there. Are you familiar with the camera? Okay, excellent. All right, so go down this list, and basically you have white balance, daylight. I'm not sure about that. You may want to maybe post-process the imagery later and figure out what is the best. Maybe
daylight would be the best.
Yeah, I would say daylight for now.
Yeah, let's leave it daylight for now.
And you can in phase capture you can change it.
Yeah, we'll play with that. I'll let my imaging guys take a look at that.
Okay, compression, you don't want to mess with that. Program is auto. That means it will pick everything automatically within these limits.
Yep.
So it will, minimum aperture 5.6. Well, you can even go to lower. ISO 50 to 200 ISO, that's reasonable. And then maximum shutter speed from 1/800 to 1/1600. Shutter can go faster than that, so those limits are, you could also maximize it a little bit. Yeah, you can easily go at 1/2000.
We probably don't want that shutter get below 1,000.
Right.
And over 1,000.
Right.
That's what that calculator was showing.
Right. And that's at low altitude, fast speed.
Yeah.
So, and then if you like this, you could save user settings, and you can have different settings automatically pop in for you. But I would
I
say,
think I would change your max ISO. I wouldn't go much over like 800.
have you used this camera?
Well, just by any camera, much over 800. I mean,
I would say
if it's so dark that we go over 800 on ISO, we shouldn't be fine.
sure. I mean, I would leave it maybe 1250. This is a new sensor. It's pretty good. And I would recommend that you guys test out these things and then figure out, okay, definitely don't go about that because it's too much grain. But I was pretty happy so far. It goes to 6,000 ISO.
We'll probably get some pretty standard camera settings where we won't have to run on auto. It'll take a little bit. You'll get comfortable with it. We'll get comfortable with it in the office. There'll be some
So
feedback.
go ahead and save settings, save user. Yeah. And it'll permanently store these in there. Now, what we're going to do instead of auto, let's put it on manual and let's take a good guess about, this is how I operate it. So go to manual from,
Program.
All the way at the top.
Yep, right there. And manual. And then I've noticed that sometimes when you do this, it doesn't change everything automatically. So I go to apply all. Yeah, and now see, ISO is still grayed out, which is weird. Go to common and then come back to settings. Okay, maybe close this and then reopen it. I noticed this last week as well. So to go to camera, go in there. And go to, okay, settings right there, good. So now it's fine. It seems like when you switch between auto to manual, it does it, so you have to close the window and then. So now you will have, on manual, certain things will be disabled. So ISO, it's minimal, basically. On a bright day like this, you can go between 50 to 150. Let's leave 50 the way it is. Aperture, set it to 5.6. A good number would be 5.6 to about 7 or 8.
Yep.
Shutter speed 1/1600. That's pretty good.
I bet that'll be bright today.
Yeah, and we can even go a little bit higher. What you want
We
to
can
do,
test it in the air in real time, though.
right? And this is basically what you will be doing. Like, this is a good start, and then you can, if it's overexposed, you can go faster on the shutter speed, and then you can go higher number on aperture, which will shrink down the aperture and make the image darker.
What's the feedback? Are we got a histogram or just a sliding scale?
We'll go through that. So hit apply all, and once you apply this, you can move this over, and because you're covering the camera window, and then you can start the camera. And to start logging the camera, you just have to hit this camera with the green pencil, and you should start seeing trigger count, you know, and you're seeing that. What you are not seeing in this window is the histogram, but you're taking the pictures and they are a little dark. So what you need to do...
Why under the camera with your bright shirt on?
Alright, so there's a little bit of configurations that we may have to do here.
Well, I mean, we're only 3 feet from a black surface. So
Yeah, that's true.
this is where we can test out your 1600 ISO.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not seeing histogram. Why is that? Yeah, but that's thermal.
Histogram visible, it was checked on.
Oh, okay, information visible. I have to check this. Alright, see, this is a histogram and this gives you feedback about all of this. I have to change one thing under environment settings so you don't have to do this next project. This information visible will come on its own by default, so you only have to do this once. So now, new project, you don't have to select this. Alright, see, histogram is all the way over here. That means the image is way over underexposed. So it's pretty much black. So what you want to do, and you can change the settings only when the camera is not taking pictures. So now what you want to do is you already did. That's the start. So what would you do to brighten up the image?
I would increase the ISO.
Yep. Because 50 is very low.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking just a bump or two in flight, you would go with the shutter speed or the aperture mostly.
250 is not bad. 100 is very low, and we're sitting right over the tarmac. So, all right, I would do that. Next thing, I would open up the aperture. Again, in flight, you are not going to need to do that. And then I would say at this point it's pretty good. And then, you know, if it's still not enough, we could do more. So I would say leave the shutter alone for now, and then hit apply all. And now repeat the same procedure. So this will turn the camera on, and then to start actually taking pictures. So see, the histogram has moved. We have the cap off. So it is still very dark, but now it is a little bit brighter. So
Put that on the floor.
okay. So see, yeah, this is better. So it's a little bit brighter. So, but it's still, you know, not bright enough. What in general you want to do, you want to make sure that your histogram is on this side, but see how thin it is. So, and you don't want to have it clipped. So this is a little bit underexposed still. So it's always a good idea to underexpose by one stop, where, you know, instead of having perfect bell-shaped histogram, move it over this side, because they can correct. It's a raw image. They can correct 3 to up to 4 stops, no problem, as long as you're not clipping it. So, what else would you try to do to brighten this up a little bit?
So there's going to try and brighten it up a little bit. Open the aperture up a little bit more if we can.
No.
I don't think you can go down any further.
4 is the max.
I would slow your shutter, but not below 1,000.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good number. But now, okay, so what would you do then next?
So shutter speeds,
You can't apply it until you stop recording.
Yeah, see, the apply button is grayed out.
Yep.
Yep.
Do you have to stop both or just stop that one? Because I know when you stop that one, his buttons came on.
Okay, so yeah, so then that's what it is. We don't have to go all the way then. All right. So it moved that way, so it looks better. So this is already not too bad, but if you want to go to more, so let's go to extreme and correct it even more. And this time, don't go all the way.
Just hit that one. Just hit that button. Don't hit the other one.
Yeah, so now you see apply. Yeah, good observation. So what would you do at this point? You already, let's say this is your max. Your flight log will tell you, okay, don't go below this shutter speed. So let's say this is the minimum you could do.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the only thing you would do is do the ISO. So put that to like 1250. And this is massive increase in sensitivity. So
It should be over here somewhere.
right, so this will be interesting. Okay. So now this is actually very good. You have, and you will probably never have this situation unless you fly over water, really dark water, and then the beach. This is pretty much very similar situation. You have white sand and then you have very dark water. But if you fly like today over the bore site, you're not going to see something like this, some massive dynamic range.
Yeah.
So, but this is a little bit overexposed because it's on that side, and this is a little bit underexposed. But in general, as I've mentioned, you want to have a little bit of underexposure. So let's say we like this.
Okay.
So go ahead and stop logging, and we're getting online. We're gonna have to do what? Right now we're set to interval at 3 seconds, right?
So I want to put it to the stop supposed to play.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to stop that guy now.
Yeah.
There you go.
For this, yeah, you have to do that. So that kind of gives you a hint.
That's the word to go. Yeah.
Yeah, and now you're at external high. So now, if you hit that button, it's not going to take pictures.
Yeah.
See, it's the trigger count is NA. It's waiting for FMS to do the job. All right. So, and at this time, if you don't want to change the settings anymore, you can close it, or you can keep it open. Doesn't really matter. I usually close it if I'm happy with this. All right. So you have your laser settings done. You have your camera prepared. So next thing, all you have to do is start firing the laser. But we're on the ground, so make sure before you hit that button, there's nobody underneath.
Let's call the
Move
plate.
that thing. Yeah. So
Oh yeah, yeah, good.
that's it.
All right. So.
So here.
You're clear.
All right, so hit that, but before even we hit that button, let's go ahead and start the tracker. So you want to have limited amount of time when the laser is hitting the ground. Yep, hit that. And basically you should see a similar window as that. And from there you should be able, because we already loaded the flight plan, you should be able to see it here.
See, this looks to me like it's in reverse, so he's gonna have to have that checked on, and you're gonna have to activate the flight plan from this tablet.
So if you do the start automatically, it will basically forego this screen, and then it will tell you, okay, waiting and waiting.
Right. You're waiting on this guy.
Yeah, yeah. You could do it if you like it. I prefer to do it this way because once it starts searching it and you need to get into change configuration, it's a bit of a pain. But sure, you could consider that. Up to you guys. So go ahead and click OK. I'd much rather just click OK myself. And then here you're going to select the project.
That software hasn't changed.
Okay, so 10 years?
25 years?
The line is not showing up here. I suspect it's a display issue. So what we're gonna have to do is play with the resolution a little bit because try to move it around. Yeah, see, move it around and you
Hit
should.
this button right here.
Tracker or resolution issue?
Click on the GPS thing. So GPS, you always have to click GPS, and you will see that these values are starting to populate. And then move it around. You may be able to find. Move it here. Try to very slowly. If you hit that line, it will bring it up at the top. Let me try this a little bit.
San Marcos.
So I don't see it here. So it's possible. Let's try, and you can try, for example, going to File, return to main menu, and you can load another plan with more lines. Let's try that. So block A will probably have the most lines. Okay. Yeah, see? Run 5. So the flight is loaded, but it's not displaying it. I had similar issues very recently, and the Planix told me to play with the resolution. So let's do that. And it may mess up our recording, but oh well.
I 1024 by 10 or 12, whatever it is.
Okay. So it was actually
This is a wider
The-
screen laptop.
and let's try putting it back to that. Okay.
Yeah.
So all it is just the
100% instead of 125.
what's it called?
Size of the apps.
Yeah. Anyways, and I think if we restart this thing now, yeah. Okay. Okay, and see, it screwed up our recording. So we're gonna stop this recording.